Do you ever start a craft project thinking it's going to be one thing and then somehow it turns into something completely different? Well, that's kind of what happened with this video. Originally, I started it as a video to show you how to use my layered alphabet SVGs, and then I kind of kept going and framing it and eventually realized I'd created a completely separate video to what I'd intended, and this one is extra special because I have discovered a new way to frame my layered designs perfectly. I don't know why I didn't think of it before, but I'm going to show you it today. And if you're like me and you struggle to get things exactly in the middle, you need this framing hack. This hack will work for any layered SVG. However, I'm going to show it with my layered gnome alphabet. This alphabet contains the full A to Z and 0 to 9 letters, and it usually costs $37. However, you can download it absolutely free until the 18th of January. To get the gnome alphabet and 10 additional layered gnome SVGs, head to craftwithsarah.com/jumpstart. This will take you to the website to sign up for the Jumpstart Your Creative Life bundle. This is a brand new free bundle where you can get loads of amazing craft goodies from different types of crafters from around the world. Mine is, of course, layered Cricut paper craft projects, but there's also calligraphy, card making, craft room organization, and so much more. It's a great way to learn new craft skills for 2023. But don't forget, these designs are only available for free until the 18th of January. So head to craftwithsarah.com/jumpstart to get them all. But for now, let's jumpstart into discovering my new framing hack. The first thing you'll need to do to make your layered paper craft shadow box is to choose the design which you'd like to put in the frame. I'm using this letter S layered gnome design, which is available for free until January the 18th. If you're watching this after January the 18th, then you can get the full A to Z alphabet plus numbers in my SVG shop. I'll add the link to the description of this video. You can also download the full alphabet and numbers for free if you're a member of Craft Clubhouse. Craft Clubhouse is my members area where you pay a one-time fee to get instant access to hundreds of layered SVG files and alphabets such as this gnome, plus new designs every month at no extra cost. To find out more about Craft Clubhouse, visit craftwithsarah.com/clubhouse. But now let's jump straight on to how to make our little framed design. So whatever you're making, whether it's a letter or an animal or whatever it is that you've decided that you would like to put into your frame, upload the SVG file into Design Space and get it into a project. I've already done my S, which you can see here. Next, we need to measure the shadow box frame that it's going to go in. Before we can start creating our design in Cricut Design Space, we need to know how big to make it. Choose the frame that you want to put your letters in and then open it up. So I've already folded up the little tabs on the side of my frame. I'm going to take the back off and then bring out the spacer inside. If yours doesn't have a spacer, then you can measure the frame itself or measure the back of the frame. But I like to do the spacer where possible. So here's my wooden spacer, and then I'm going to measure from one edge here all the way to the other edge and use the bottom line along here to make sure my ruler is straight. So I'm going to line that up against the bottom so it's touching, and mine is 8.5 inches. So now I know that, let's head on over to Cricut Design Space. My shadow box was 8.5 inches across, so I'm going to make a template in Design Space so I know exactly how big to make everything else. Go into Shapes and then choose a square. So I'll click it and type 8.5 in there and press Enter. I'm going to change the colour to white just so I know this is going to be my background. When I'm making shadow box backgrounds, I like to use a patterned paper for my main outline and then add a white or lightly coloured square in the middle for my layered SVG to sit on, just so that it's got a nice plain background behind it so it doesn't detract from the colours in the design. And then I give that a little dark coloured border to make the white stand out from whatever pattern I've put on the background. To do that, click on the square and then press duplicate over on the top right. I'm going to make this smaller, and remember that when you're making a shadow box, you'll probably find that your frame will cover the edges of this square slightly, just because they normally have beveled edges on the outside of the frame, so it just covers a little bit of this. So I don't want to make my smaller square too close to the edge. I'll go 6.75 inches, and that will go in the middle. Now, this is going to be my coloured square, a dark colour to match with the outline here. So first, I'm going to actually change that to a nice bright colour. And then my one in the middle, I will decide on the colour a bit later on, the actual real colour. I'm just adding random colours for now. And then I want to add my white one in the middle. So let's duplicate it again. Change this one to white. And then make it just 1/4 of an inch smaller, so 6.5 inches. I want all these to go exactly in the middle of each other, so let's drag a box around them and then go align, center. I can now drag my layered design over. It's showing underneath everything at the moment, so let's go arrange and bring to front. And now I know exactly how big to make this, because I've got the sizes of everything that goes in the frame. Maybe a little bit smaller than that. And I'm just going to check by going align and center again to make sure that I know how it's going to look when it's in the middle. I mentioned in the introduction of this video that I was going to show you a way to kind of hack your design to make sure everything is stuck exactly in the middle with hardly any effort at all, which is really, really helpful if you're like me and cannot stick anything straight. I'm terrible at it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the scoring tool in the Cricut machine to add some magic little guidelines so we know where to glue everything. To start with, I'm going to press select all, and then I am going to group everything, duplicate it, and then select all again and align and center. For my duplicated one, which is now on top, let's ungroup it. And then I'm not going to need that orange square. So I've clicked the orange square. I'm going to delete it by pressing delete on my keyboard, or you can click delete up here. Now it doesn't look like anything changed because remember we've got another one underneath. So we've now got this group, which is our original layers, and then copies of these ones. Click on your layered design and then down the bottom, press combine and weld. This is going to turn it into just one layer. And you'll see why I'm doing this in a moment. I'm going to change the colour of this to black, actually a dark grey. And then also for these ones, I'm going to change the colour of these two so that I know that they're different. Okay, so now we've got those, we can start being a little bit clever. Let's open up this other group. And to start with, I'm going to ungroup it by clicking where it says group and press ungroup. Hide both of your layered designs, so the one that you welded and the one with all the layers. And then I'm also going to hide my smaller square. So that's the darker one there and also the white one that's hiding under there. And I'll also hide the blue one. So now I've only got 2 layers remaining, which if I drag them about, you see it's this copy of the middle square and my original orange. Let's undo that to put it exactly back in the middle. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this grey square into a score line by going into operation and then score. It changes to a dotted line. We then need to attach these 2 layers together. Attach is what tells the Cricut that we actually want it to score in the middle of this orange square. Let's drag a box around both of those and then down the bottom of the layers panel, press attach. So what's going to happen is that once this is cut, it's going to score this square. And this is exactly the same size as that dark blue square that I made earlier. So I'll know when I'm sticking that blue one on to line it up against this score line, and then it will be precisely in the middle. Let's do the same for the next bit. I'll hide this one by clicking the eye next to it, and then turn on my other grey rectangle, and then my darker blue one, which is down here. So I'm going to do the same thing again. Click on the grey one and change it to a score line. And remember, this grey one is the exact size of the white square, which will be sticking on top. Drag a box around them and attach them. And then I'll close that up and hide it. Next, we've got our dark grey welded version of the layered design and the white square to go in the middle. Again, we're going to change this one to, under operation to a score line, and then attach these. So now, once it cuts out the white square, it's going to score the outline of my layered design in the middle. And then when I'm sticking together the layered design, I know exactly where to put it to make sure it's straight and perfectly centered. Let's turn everything back on and my layered design. I'm going to move the layered design back to the front. And there we go. This is now all ready for me to cut out. Just to show you what happens, let's go to Make It. And this will separate out all of the different colours. You can change the paper size in here, and if you want to, you can drag and drop things about to move them around so that they take up less space on your cardstock. You can see this is going to do my scored bit here, and then I've also got all of my other colours here. You do need to change the paper size for every colour. So go ahead, get your layered design looking exactly as you want it to. Get everything cut out, and then I'll show you how we're going to use those score lines to get everything stuck together perfectly. Here are all of my layers of my little gnome letter cut out, and I've laid them on top of each other just to check I'm happy with the colours and that I haven't accidentally lost any of those little pieces along the way. I'm loving how this is looking with all the bright colours, and it's time to stick it all together. With all my layered designs, you start at the bottom and work your way upwards. So let's move the letter away from the background. There we go. And I think to start, I will actually stick my background layers together. And this is going to be really easy because of all of those score lines. It's probably not going to show up on the camera. I don't think you'll be able to see. But I have got all of my squares scored, and also on my top white bit, it's got the outline of the S. I really don't think that's picking up, unfortunately. But it is there, I promise, so I can see exactly where I need to stick everything. Maybe it'll show up more on this one. Oh, it does actually, because this is holographic. Like, you can see just that score line around the edge, which is where I'll need to stick my white square. Okay, so I'm going to glue these together. I'm using Collel glue. I really like it for paper craft projects because it doesn't bend or wrinkle the cardstock. If you are outside of the UK, then other great alternatives to use are Bearly Art Glue or Art Glitter Glue. And then I put this into these needle tip applicator bottles. These have teeny tiny little nibs on them, which means it's going to be super easy to get the glue in all the tiny parts of the gnome letter. But to start with, I will do the frame, the background, the mats, the layers, whatever you want to call them, and start with the green. So let's turn it upside down, add some glue. The nice thing about glue for sticking these bits together is that if you haven't quite lined it up right, then you do have a bit of wiggle room until the glue dries to get it into position. I'm adding quite a lot of glue because this is going to have all my other layers on, so it's going to end up getting a little bit heavy and I don't want it to fall off. there's my base. And I'm sorry you can't see it on the camera, but I'm going to line this up against those score lines to know really easily that this is exactly in the middle. This tip is just life-changing, especially for someone like me who cannot stick anything straight to save my life. I'm terrible at it. But now that is exactly in the middle. It's straight, it's even, and it's beautiful. And that was so easy. So in my opinion, definitely worth that little bit of extra effort in Design Space to add in those score lines. And I can do exactly the same with the next one. I just need to make sure I stick this the right way up because I've got the outline of the S on here. Let's turn this over. Get my glue again and stick this on. Once again, I've got these score lines on my green. Just check that's the right way up, which it is. Line that up against the score line and down there. And perfect. Double checking. Yep, that's good. So once again, super easy to get it in the middle. Now we can start with the letter, and I'm going to move all the gnome pieces. Oh no, I'm going to drop it. Move the gnome bits to one side. I have already stuck the bumblebees together because I knew I was going to lose these teeny tiny pieces if I didn't do something. So I'm going to start with the bottom of the S. Now usually when I do layered designs, I would make the whole layered design and then put it onto my background for the frame. However, because I've done those score lines, I kind of want to line up this bottom layer now. I think it's going to be easier to stick it straight onto my backing. But it's completely up to you. You can either do it this way, or you can make the whole layered design and then put it into your frame. So whichever way you decide is fine. So I've got my score lines. It's a little bit hard to see, even for me. I know you probably can't see it at all, but it means I've got the outline. I've just managed to get some glue on there. That was silly. And line this up. It doesn't quite hit the score line everywhere because I've got the outline of the bumblebees on there, which isn't actually part of this layer, but that's okay. I've got that S lined up and my little gnome. So once again, perfectly centralized. I am liking this. The next layer is this one. And I didn't intend it, but it's kind of giving me like Swiss cheese vibes with the yellow and all the little holes in. Hopefully it won't look like cheese when it's all finished. But this one is another glue layer. I've included an assembly guide PDF in your download folder for these letters, so you can have a look at that and print it out if you want to, or just look at it on your computer. And it tells you which of the layers to glue and which to use the 3D foam squares for. We haven't got to any of the 3D layers yet, but we will shortly. Okay. And of course, if you wanted to, you could have foamed the very bottom layer to pop it out a bit more. That probably would have been quite nice actually, but I didn't think about it. So we'll stick with the glue. And there's a little bit in there that should have come out. There we go. Right, the next layer is this one. And this one is up to you if you want to glue it or if you want to use your foam. I'm going to use foam just to pop out these little flowers from the background a little bit. So let's turn it over. The foam squares I'm using are from Dot & Dab. They're nice and small, so I should be able to get them in all these spaces quite easily. If you've got bigger ones, then you might need to cut them with a pair of scissors. Let's put the lid on my glue before I forget and it all dries up. Right, I've turned this upside down and now I can add my foam squares. I want to add quite a lot to get a nice consistent stick across the whole thing. And also I'm putting this in the larger areas, so my solid sort of shapes in the letter and around the bits of the gnome, because I don't think I'll be able to actually get the foam in the outline of the S as it's very thin. So by putting lots of bits in the more solid areas, hopefully that will help to make it look nice and stable and consistent. Although I'm kind of thinking I might actually try and cut some of these smaller to go around the edge, because this is a big amount of space not to have any foam in it. So yes, let's just grab a pair of scissors, cut some of these in half. And then these are very small, but I can put some of these around the edge. Make sure none of your foam overlaps the edges, otherwise you'll be able to see it from the other side once it's all turned over. And we don't want to be able to see our foam, we want it to be nice and hidden, so just be a little bit careful when placing it, especially if you're doing it like I am and putting it around the edge, because it is really quite thin. There, now that is quite a lot of foam, but I'd much rather have a few extra pieces on there than not enough. So now it's time to peel the tops off of the foam squares to reveal all of that stickiness underneath. This is going to be a little bit tricky on my outside pieces because they're so small. I think I've taken all of the backing off of that now. So let's bring this one back in. And then I'm going to line this up and then gently drop it down when I'm happy with the positioning. The reason for gently placing it is that if I then wasn't quite happy with where it was, if I hadn't quite lined it up right, I could easily pick it up again and move it without damaging anything. But that looks good, so I will push it down. And actually now we've got that depth, I don't mind so much that I glued the yellow to the bottom instead of using the foam, because that's giving it a nice pop out effect anyway. The next layer to add is the top layer of the letter, and this one will be a glue layer, which you'll probably be pleased about because of all the little narrow bits on here. Let's get my glue. Once again, make sure you put a good amount on. You want it to be really well stuck on there. Now I can carefully pick this up, turn it round, and get that stuck on. So it'll line up exactly. And then you'll just see the white through the gaps to make up all those little pictures. Cute. Fabulous. Okay, looking good. Next, I'm going to do the little bumblebees. And as I said, I have already stuck these together. So each teeny tiny bumblebee is 3 layers. I'm not sure how close I can get to the camera for that to be in focus. Hopefully you can see him. So you'll have a yellow piece, which is the bottom, then a white bit, and then a grey bit. And those are all glued together to make the little 3-layered bumblebees. They should all be the same size. So you don't need to worry too much about which one goes where. I've just noticed I've dripped a bit of glue on there. Look. Oh, you could just about see. That's really annoying. I was being so careful as well. Never mind. I will see how it dries and then maybe cover it up with something. Okay, so my bumblebees, I'm going to add on with a bit of foam. I think just 2 little bits to pop them out. These will be in slightly different positions on every letter. So just refer back to your Design Space screen to see exactly where to put them if you can't work it out from the little silhouettes. I didn't include the little antennas on every layer, just the grey one, only because they're so thin. I thought they might be a bit tricky to cut, so I wanted to make sure you only had to do it on one colour, which is the grey. There we go, 3 little bumblebees. And now all we have left to do is the gnome. And I've made a bit of a mess of all my layers here. So we'll start with the bottom. I've already glued on the little black layer for the bird and the blue one, again, because I was worried about losing them. So the yellow one is the next one, which is going to go on like this. And I'm going to use my foam squares on him to pop his body out from his feet. This is another layer that you could glue if you wanted to, so it's up to you. But I want to make sure this gnome really pops out. I'm using the hat and the bird to know where to line it up because it doesn't quite hit the bottom as that's where the feet are. And then next I've got the hat layer and this one I will glue. Lovely bright green on this card. Just whiz my glue around here. It's much easier now we're on the smaller layers, although I suppose they are trickier to pick up, so maybe not that much easier. Right, there's that one. Next we've got his big beard layer, and this will be a foam square layer. I want to get that beard to really pop out from his body. There we go. And then next is his moustache layer, which is going to line up along that top. Another foam one for this, so that you can really see that moustache popping out from the beard. I'm going to put a teeny tiny bit in the stream of the watering can. And then I'm going to use the watering can to line it up, I think. There we go. So for his hat, I've already glued the 2 little flowers together. There's a solid white one and then the yellow one on top. And then a bit of foam on that one. Got the watering can. This will be a glue layer. This is very thin. I'm not even going to try and put glue in the little bits of water coming off there. There we go. And then his hand, I'm going to cheat a bit and put the glue on there. For his back hand, I'm going to use a little bit of foam to make it look like he's holding that bird. I didn't want to use foam on the front hand because that's already so far out, because it's got all those beard layers in. This one I think needs that little pop. There we go. And then finally his nose on top of his moustache. You could do either foam or glue on this nose. I'm going to glue it because he's already quite thick and I don't want it to get so thick that it is too big for the frame. So just a bit of glue on there. And then there we go. How adorable is that? I love how it's come out. Let's see how it looks in the frame. Here's my shadow box frame, and I'm going to just ignore that little bit of glue that I smudged out. I don't think you'll actually notice it when it's all in the frame. Now, if I was doing this for real, I'd put the glass in first. Make sure you give it a good clean first with some glass cleaner. However, I'm not going to do that just for this video, otherwise all you'll see is the glare of my camera lights in the glass. So I'm going to leave my glass out, put my spacer in. There, and then my design will go on the back, and see how it perfectly fits because we measured it at the start. And then the back of the frame. There. Ooh. It's not tucking in. I bent that one a bit funny and there we go. Right. Oh gosh, all my tabs are breaking. Ah, look at that. See, I use my frames, I reuse them for a lot of my craft projects because I make so many for YouTube that I don't end up displaying a lot of them. But it means my frames are really weak. So yeah, pretty much all of those are about to fall off, but never mind. So there we go, that's the back of it. And we turn it round. Oh, I love it. It's just, honestly, it is the most accurate project I've ever made because of those score lines on all of my little background squares. So yeah, it's incredibly rare that I managed to stick something straight. So I'm very, very happy with how this has turned out, and I hope you also enjoy making your very own layered gnome alphabet. I hope you enjoyed this video with my new hack for framing your layered SVGs. Don't forget to get the alphabet for free. Head to craftedsarah.com/jumpstart and remember to download it before the 18th of January. Now, if you were actually hoping for what this video was supposed to be, which was how to use the layered SVGs to spell out a name or to add multiple versions of them in a frame, then don't worry, I'm still going to make that video and it will be out in a few days' time. So subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the little bell to enable notifications to make sure that you don't miss it. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!